Welcome back to the Matt Mettler podcast broadcast. How the heck are you? I hope that you're doing well. Had a pretty amazing week. Did a couple of shows over the last several days. They were both quite interesting in their own unique ways. There's no doubt about that. Both shows went pretty good, even though one of them was kind of chaotic. I got to be honest, man. One of them was kind of a chaotic show. The first gig that I did was a doctor thing, where a whole bunch of doctors from the region here, well, from the country even, got together and talked about a particular kind of health in humans. The doctors that were engaged in doing this were brilliant. And even though I'm not a doctor, but I have played one on TV, just kidding, I learned a lot. And it was pretty fascinating and slightly terrifying as well, right? Because they talked about a lot of things that you could have as problems in your life if you're not doing the right things. In a way, it was kind of a scary wake-up call, and it made me want to change some habits, and it made me want to try and do better in my own life. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting side effect, right? I wasn't expecting that to happen. Doctors aren't perfect. They're just human beings. They are fallible, that they very much were trying their hardest to give positive outcomes to their patients and increase the quality of their lives, right? And that was wonderful to see, actually, that doctors are humans too, and that they're not Harry Potter, right? They don't have a magic wand that they can wave that's going to make up for years of treating yourself badly or not doing the right things as far as taking care of yourself. I learned all kinds of stuff about like aneurysms, how they solve those kinds of problems in the body, all these implants that they put in the body to solve these kind of problems, how they install them, right? It was fascinating and terrifying all at the same time, man. So it was pretty neat gig. So that was really kind of cool. That's one of those things that I love about the entertainment business is that for a day, you get to be an insider. You get to attend something that only a special group or a certain group of people get to attend, and you get to sit in on it from a third person's perspective and see what's going on there, right? One time I did this meeting for audiologists, and they were talking about the intercochlear ear implant, which is an electronic device that they actually put into your head that, for all intents and purposes, it is bionic hearing. It is cyber hearing, right? And when they were talking about the installation of the device and how it worked and everything, it was really funny because at one point, one of the people that was giving the talk said, "Are there any questions?" And I said, I hate to interrupt y'all's meeting, but this is fascinating. From a sound man's perspective, as a sound man, what you guys are talking about is fascinating, right? Like you're talking about cyber hearing. You're talking about bionic hearing. And it's amazing. That was one of those moments where I was really glad I was able to sit in on that. I learned a lot of stuff about hearing that day, right? So that was really cool. There we go. That's going to be so much quieter for you guys now. I had some fans running. I was cooling the shop down. When I got here, it is a beautiful September evening outside, but it was still hot inside the studio. So I had to cool it down. I opened the door up for a while and was blowing the air around to cool it down. So I forgot that I had some fans on. So it is now much, much, much quieter in here. Hopefully you can tell. Yeah, so I was wonderfully impressed by doing that show with the doctors. The only thing that was kind of challenging was they showed some crazy gory pictures of surgeries. And it was kind of funny because, I jokingly said I should ask for more money for this gig because it's one thing to mix sound, but it's a whole nother thing to have people show you crazy pictures of surgeries. I think one of the things that was really trippy is that to all these surgeons, because there's a bunch of surgeons, right? It was nothing to them. It was just like another day at the office looking at this picture of this crazy surgery, right? I really enjoyed it. And then the second gig was a party up in the mountains. Let's just say adjacent to one of the famous ski towns, right? It was up in the mountains at a very private, exclusive kind of location. Oh my God, it was a hell gig. It was a hell gig because the logistical component of loading in all of these different vendors and all of this equipment into this location was nightmarish. And we have a saying in production, proper planning prevents piss poor productions. And this one was just, it was rough all the way around because there was a single lane road through the woods that led to this place. And we ended up having to back the truck up probably a quarter of a mile or something like that because we came nose to nose with another truck that was coming down the road. So it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And all the road cases had to be dragged across grass. And anybody who's ever done anything in show business will tell you that dragging road cases on grass is a real challenge, right? Because they have a narrow wheel and the boxes are heavy and they tend to dig in. And it was a real workout. Let me put it that way. It was a real workout. And I think we were at about 8,500 feet. So it was like I was already gassing because there was no air. And then, yeah, it just kept getting better, right? So then we didn't get to do our full sound check. We only got to do a tiny bit of a sound check because the ceremony was going on up the hill and we weren't allowed to sound check during the ceremony. So then, I had to put the band on basically kind of raw and just kind of kick a mix from right there. It was interesting. I did eventually get it dialed in. I thought that from the audience's perspective, it actually sounded pretty good after the first song or two. It was quite a fun party, but the work that went into putting the party together was just so much. And then at the end of the night, we were loading out. It was so cold that you could see your breath while we were loading all this stuff up. And it was dark. And you're in the middle of the woods, basically, dragging all these road cases across wet grass where it is now. It actually started to begin to lightly snow as we were loading out. So I'm sore. It was a lot of work. I did receive kudos from the band. They were really pleased that I was the audio engineer and that they said that I had a great attitude. And, that felt really nice because from a hell gig perspective, at least I have the band's respect as far as being a solid audio engineer and making things happen in a, jumping through the seat of our pants, our timeline went completely out the window kind of way. So yeah, it was pretty interesting gig. I didn't see the actual ceremony part. I just saw the party part afterwards, right? And mixed the band for the party part. And it was pretty fun. It was pretty nice, and it was beautiful. The tent that we did it in was so beautifully appointed with flowers and all kinds of accoutrement that you might need for a celebration. It was amazingly beautiful. And I was glad that I could participate in that. And in a way, I think that they're kind of lucky that they hired the company that hired me. Because with as nightmarish as that scenario was when it unfolded, it could have gone horribly badly. And yeah, when we got there, it was just like the first thing out of the guy's mouth is, how fast can you have the truck unloaded? You got 15 minutes. And that's how the day started from to the time we got there until, yeah. So it was really challenging. I really felt like I earned my money. And at the same time, I guess in a way I feel kind of accomplished for persevering through all of the challenges of that gig and coming out the other side of it, right? So that was a tough gig. See, one of the things I also love about gigs and show business is that every show is its own show. Every show is a little compartmentalized opportunity for it to be great or for it to suck. And sometimes they're hard and great, and sometimes they're hard and they suck, right? This one was hard, but at least it was great. So at least we pulled the show off, in that respect. The band that played was from Orlando. They were great. They were a wonderfully talented group of people who seemed to have a real groove with each other. Like they I don't know how long they had been playing together, but they were really good. Great drummer who was a just super nice guy, and the bass player / keyboard player / DJ. He was amazingly talented, and that man, he had the funk, dude. He was playing some funky ass bass lines, and just really. They were really super talented. Guitar player was smoking guitar player. And the vocalist, she was not only beautiful, but she was also wonderfully talented. And they were wonderful, great folks to work with. And I really enjoyed that. And I love working with bands. I love working with artists because they're, I don't know, artists are like cut from a different cloth than normal, regular people, than everyday people. And I really enjoy working with them, right? And it's like Stevie Wonder says, you know, it takes teamwork to make a dream work. Just like this show. Just like it takes your teamwork to make this dream work here on the show. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up because I didn't want it to be too long. I wanted to keep this episode really reasonable for you guys and just give you an update on what's been going on and say thank you so much for joining me. Please like, subscribe, share, talk about it, leave comments. And thank you, everybody, so much for joining me here on the Matt Mettler Podcast. The Matt Mettler Podcast is a Matt Mettler production, copyright 2019.